gonna look proper.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Natalie Cole, and I am the Corporate HR Business Partner here at Landrum HR. For those of you that are not familiar with Landrum HR, we are a professional service firm with a 50-year history of serving clients across the country. We provide professional employer organization, or PEO, services that include payroll, benefits, workers' compensation, and HR support. We also provide worksite management, a customized labor solution for companies that use large numbers of temporary employees. Our HRQ division provides 3 integrated services: enterprise-wide human capital consulting, interim HR talent, and searches for high-level HR professionals. Our consulting team brings a depth of experience in workforce planning and analytics, talent management, and talent strategy projects, organizational design, and HR transformation needs. As we all know, COVID-19 has had a severe impact on the workforces worldwide. And today, our panel of recruiting and employee engagement specialists will discuss key strategies employers need to attract, hire, and retain the right employees. Throughout the hour, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments. Our goal is to provide you with the answers and advice to the problems you face today. So I'm going to quickly introduce our panel. We have Jim Howe. He's the Vice President of Landrum HR Workforce Solutions. We have Wendy Fairchild. She is our Corporate HR Senior Executive Recruiter. And Christy Dolehite, our Landrum HR Branch Manager. So again, put your comments in the comment box, and we will be answering those questions as they come in. So I did want to start out with you, Jim. So today's hiring landscape has changed dramatically since COVID hit in March of 2020. So what is your take on our current climate today in hiring?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. So it's really interesting. Prior to COVID hitting in March of 2020, we in this country had actually gone 27 consecutive months with more job openings than unemployed people in our country. So COVID hit, and that kind of flipped upside down, where we had significant number of people that were now unemployed, either temporarily or permanently as a result of COVID and changes in the workplace. What we've now seen, 14 months later, is we've gone back to a place where we have as many job openings as unemployed people in our country today. And unemployment continues to drop nationally. I think nationally it's around 5.8, which is down from over 6% earlier this year. There's many areas like the Panhandle here where we're at, where unemployment rates are in the mid fours, and some areas just across the border in Alabama where it's actually less than 4% and starting to creep closer to where it was pre COVID pandemic. So we've seen some changes, but I feel like from some of the latest information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we have 9.3 million job openings today in our country, which is the most job openings we've ever had. So there's a lot that's changing, and I think as the economy rebounds and people are hiring, folks are really struggling with how do I find enough people to fill the openings that I've got in my company. So.
Yeah. So Wendy, on that note, a lot of people are looking for remote positions right now. So how are businesses supposed to approach when they have to have somebody that is in seat actually coming to their business? Are you finding that there's a lot of challenges there with everyone have gone remote with COVID, and now we're opening back up?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there are some people who had never worked remote and had that opportunity to take unbeknownst to them, got kind of pushed into a remote opportunity and found that they really liked it. And so they are out seeking opportunities to stay remote. They like the flexible, they don't have to drive in. They don't have to spend the gas. They don't have to spend the extra money, of course, with clothing and things such as that. However, there's also the flip side of that as well, too. There are people who do enjoy, being in the office. But yes, there are certainly positions that absolutely have to be either in an office, maybe they're customer facing, or maybe it's something in an industrial type setting. And so to me, the best thing that I've seen employers do is to really, one, communicate with their employees and make sure that they're communicating with those people they're looking to hire, and to be creative. Mm-hmm. Are there ways that you can attract the talent? Is there an opportunity to have a hybrid workforce where you may have several people doing the same job, where some people could perhaps maybe work from home 1 or 2 days a week while someone else is in the office, so you're still having that in-office coverage? Or can the person work a little bit different hours that might allow some flexibility as well too? So still having someone present in the office to be customer facing, or should, again, types of positions that actually require someone being there, can you work with these employees and that your current employees, and then also attract that talent as well too? Because there are some people that do enjoy being in the office. So I think that that's also anything that you can offer some incentives to have people be able to come in, and I think that's great.
Yeah. So Christy, from a staffing perspective, working with clients, are you seeing more and more clients being open to remote opportunities, or are you seeing more clients being open to trying to get back to normal business?
It's an even mix, really, but there are some positions that just require a physical person to be in that role. And one thing that we found is if those companies are willing to train someone into those positions, there are lots of candidates right now that are looking to make career changes. So they could be a perfect fit if the company is available or can train them into that job.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So Jim, where do you see the labor market going for the rest of 2021 and into 2022 as we continue to learn our new normal? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's a great great question, Natalie. And I think maybe just piggybacking a little bit on what Christy was saying, the statistics are showing that there's more confidence from the worker population today than there's been in a long time, which leads to the fact that nationally there was over 4 million people that quit their job last month, right, for other opportunities. And again, that's a new high for our country of people quitting a job, and that's really they're looking for new opportunities. So what I feel is going to happen the rest of this year and into 2022 is we're going to continue to see a lot of pressure on wages. Most companies today, as an attraction measure, where they haven't maybe fully developed, all of their attraction options, are using pay as their leading way to attract workers. So we're seeing wages increase, especially in more entry level to semi-skilled positions today than we've ever seen, right? So hospitality, retail, manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, pay rates are going to levels that they haven't ever been to before. So wage pressure is going to continue to be out there as the unemployment level continues to drop. There's going to be a continued fight for talent, right? So we've got to be creative in our approach to not only finding talent, but to developing the talent that we already have in-house. So it's really expensive if we get on this kind of hamster wheel where we're always trying just to refill to stay at a level set. And so we've got to figure out, how do we balance the attraction piece with the engagement and retention piece and the development piece of our workforce in order to create more worker stability. And the companies that can figure that model out and create worker stability through their attraction programs as well as their engagement and retention programs are the ones that are going to be successful, through the next 12 to 18 months probably, because there's a lot of projections out there that unemployment rates may get as low as they were pre-pandemic. And I know here in the Panhandle, we were around 3% unemployment, and 3% unemployment with a high number of job openings, certainly creates a lot of pressure for companies that are trying to hire and make sure they've got adequate staff to run their business.
Yeah. Wendy, are you seeing that it's easier to recruit nationwide now, or are you seeing that there is a variety of locations that you're able to attract talent from more so than others?
One thing with regard to nationwide recruiting is having the opportunities available out there, as I mentioned kind of earlier with remote, that weren't there before. You can now, companies who are have that option for their types of positions can now recruit in, all over the country. And that's certainly opened up the talent pools. I think that that's been great. Where used to you had to pay for relocation if you needed someone with a certain skill set that you necessarily didn't find in your area. Companies that have the opportunities for people to work remote is given both the company a great advantage as well as our talent that's out there that's looking for something, and maybe they can't move. I mean, everybody has kind of reasons sometimes that keep them in their certain location, but it's just kind of opened up the market from a nationwide perspective. So I've definitely seen for remote positions that talent certainly being available to both the companies and to the actual individuals looking to be a wonderful I guess it's something that came out of COVID that was kind of unexpected that has really been advantageous to a lot of people.
Yeah. So are we seeing any additional channels that are more successful in attracting talent through, or is it kind of how it was pre-COVID where, you had your different job boards, you had LinkedIn, you had those types of channels where you were able to reach out to individuals? Are we seeing that those are still the most active, or are people getting back into doing the job fairs and doing some more in-person recruiting?
We're definitely seeing the job fairs start to open up, and I know Christy can speak a little bit to that as well, because I know we've done some here on the Panhandle.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. We've definitely seen an uptick in the number of candidates that'll come through an in-person job fair or an open event, as well as virtual hiring events, truly. The market is a little bit different right now. A lot of the people that are in attendance are currently employed and looking to make a change or looking for a better opportunity post-pandemic. But still, more people willing to be out and about than before. So we're happy to see that.
Awesome. Well, we just had a question come in for Jim. How have the demands and skills needed in the workplace changed since pre-COVID? And what's the best way to respond to those challenges?
Yeah, I think this is a question and an area that we've been battling for a long time, especially in more industrial type environments where we've got huge skills gaps that have existed for several years. And I think the pandemic has probably kind of brought more of a spotlight in some of these areas. Some of the things that, I feel are important and it's just some good, things to put into practice, right, is hire for skills and look for transferable skills today. Okay, so there are people that are doing jobs that are like or similar in some ways to the positions that you may be looking to hire for today. So don't get caught up on hiring for previous experience. Previous experience is important and can be in certain jobs, especially highly skilled or highly technical jobs. But there's a lot of jobs that there's transferable skills available that we can find people that have done like type work that just maybe don't know your industry or your specific business. So hire for skill and hire for attitude and train to the experience levels that you're looking for. That also will create more of that employee engagement retention strategy that we talk about, because now you're building skills into your existing workforce and you're providing a career path and an opportunity for them to grow and develop inside of your organization. So those are always really positive things if you can find that inside your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that actually leads us into our next question. Can you give the audience some examples, either Wendy or Christy, of some ways to improve that overall candidate experience as individuals are coming into a new organization? Especially, Wendy, I know you can speak a lot to this, onboarding a remote employee and that experience. So
I think throughout the pre-hire process in general, and pretty much anything in business, but especially at the very beginning, is the communication. Communication is key. Making sure that those candidates, and as they become your new hires, feel supported. Make sure that they always have access to be able to ask questions. To your point, Natalie, when we get to remote environments, it's very different than bringing someone to the first day and walking them around an office and saying, welcome, I'd like to introduce you to this person and this person. This is what they do. And if you have questions about this, you have to make companies have to make a very concentrated effort as they onboard someone from a remote, especially if they're in an area where there are not other employees for that same company who they might be able to get together with on a social basis, like for lunch or gatherings for team meetings. You have to be very, very systematic in your approach and streamline your processes so that everyone feels welcomed and supported as they start their new journey. And I think constant check-ins, especially initially, are very important from different leaders of the company, introducing them around the company, putting in some different meetings and things where they have the opportunity to learn the business in general, especially like to Jim's point, if you're bringing somebody in who's got some transferable skills that may not have necessarily worked in that same type of industry before, just really entrenching them in the company's culture is absolutely key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, those are some great points about onboarding. I was also going to add just the application process itself right now needs to be as simplistic as possible. We're seeing a lot of candidates get lost in that process just of completing the application and getting drug testing and new hire paperwork completed. So less is definitely better. You'll see a lot of the Gen Zers want to text to apply. And not have so much of a hands-on approach, less paper, will definitely help in attracting some of those newer candidates that are coming into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on that and say that the candidate experience starts on the front end of the process. It doesn't start when you hire somebody, and it goes all the way back to how well do you communicate when somebody puts an application in with your organization? Do you have a process to follow up with every candidate that applies today? And that actually creates that candidate experience, for the individual. So it goes through, how well do you communicate with them? Do you give them feedback after the interview? Do they have a real clear path on what the hiring process looks like and what's going to be expected of them? So those are all really important things to kind of start building that connection with candidates, that hopefully you minimize the amount of ghosting, it's called, that happens today in the application and hiring process, where candidates respond and they're interested and they complete part of the paperwork or maybe all the paperwork, and then they just drop off the map, right? So getting closer to your candidates, staying connected with them as much as you can, giving them a real good sense of what it's like to work at your company and what you are and what do you stand for, are all great ways to start that early candidate experience and kind of show new employees or new potential hires what it's like to work for your organization.
Yeah, perfect. And we had another really great question come in. So the candidate experience is important. What are some of the implications if a candidate walks away with a poor experience, whether, if they don't get hired, especially?
Yeah.
Candidates talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was some great survey information out there around this specifically that said, I think it's roughly 70% of candidates that have a poor experience will post that or share that someplace, either online or through a network of friends or whatever. So part of, when we talk about your attraction strategy, part of that attraction strategy is your brand, right? Who you are as an organization, what it's like to work for you. So if you haven't checked out what Glassdoor has to say about your company and what employee ratings are out there, if you haven't checked out some of the other social media sites that show what it's like to work for an employer, that's a great place to start to find out what either applicants or former employees or current employees are saying about working for your company. There's also a statistic out there that says candidates are 4 times more likely to reapply with your organization if they have a great experience with you, but don't get the job, right? So there's sometimes that a candidate may not be the right fit right now, but they may be a fit later down the road. So if you have a great candidate experience with them, they're more likely to stay engaged with your company and reapply for other jobs than if they have a poor experience. They're certainly not going to be interested in another position down the road.
Well, and no one likes to make those calls or send those emails when you have a good candidate and they weren't necessarily selected, for the position just because there happened to be a better fit. But it means so much, and I hear that a lot when I unfortunately have to make those calls sometimes. People just say thank you for getting back with me, because sometimes I never hear anything, and so you never want someone to think they did something wrong or anything, or feel like they're going to take that into the next time they interview. It's giving positive feedback and letting them know how much you appreciate them taking the time, because I think that sometimes that's something that's lost, is people forget that we're, as a company, you're interviewing candidates, but they're interviewing you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christy, how does it translate when they do get hired and they have a negative experience during the application process? How do you feel like that translate when they do get hired and are offered a position?
And it was a negative experience? I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand. Yeah. It will set the tone for that employee's work performance. That negative experience being brought in, they may accept the job out of necessity or just to give it a try, but they don't forget whatever it was that was negative in the beginning, and you'll see that in their performance pretty quickly, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we had another question come in. As an employer, what are all the things we need to consider or be worried about, especially from a compliance perspective? And this is in regards to hiring remote employees. And Wendy, I know that we've had a lot of conversations about that as we've been recruiting from a lot of different states outside of Florida. So can you speak to that?
Yes, I mean, the biggest thing is that, making sure that you are, researching the laws if you're hiring a state of where you have not previously had employees. I work very closely with our HR department to make sure that we, and our legal department as well, anytime we hire somebody outside of a state where we currently don't have any employees, you have to look at drug testing laws, you have to look at payroll taxes, and making sure all those things are in line as you're moving to hire somebody remote. So it is great, and you think, oh, it's not just I send off a computer and they're now my remote employee. You have to make sure you're in compliance as well too.
Yeah. All right, Jim, do you have anything to add from a compliance perspective?
No, I mean, I think Wendy, you pretty, summed it up very well. So.
Yeah. All right, so we had another question come in. This one's kind of lengthy, so bear with me as I go through it. So we've had this is the question. We've had employees come to the office every day through the pandemic and others that have worked remotely since March 2020. It has caused some feelings of unfairness, especially when employees are in the same department. What do you feel is the new normal? Hybrid work week, continued flexibility, and what's the expectation that they should set as people are coming back into the office? And there is the risk of individuals wanting to pursue remote work. So what's the new normal? Are we looking more of a hybrid work week, continued flexibility, or are we back to business as usual in the market?
All the above. I mean, it really,
and there has been. Go ahead, Wendy. I apologize.
Oh, I was just saying. I mean,
there has been a.
Go ahead, Christy.
There has been an increase of employees that have chosen to leave their work rather than to come back into an office environment full time. So it's something to be mindful of. If your company has been successful with a hybrid or a remote work environment, it may be better to keep that so that the employees that you have are happy and want to stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also depends on the positions as well, too. There are certain positions that, again, like we spoke about earlier, have to be in an office. And there are also some that have to be customer facing. So it may require you to go out, and visit clients or, travel now that that's opening back up again as well, too. So I think it all really kind of depends on the business model. But people are looking for flexibility, and there is the argument of, well, I worked remote for so long. So I think it's to the point of if the business has been successful, while allowing people either a hybrid or a remote opportunity, can you continue that way? I mean, I think that's something each individual business has to look at. But yes, people are changing. And there was actually an article not too long ago that said some people are willing to take a $30,000 pay cut to stay remote. So there are people out there that are, are really looking at, and the thing is with COVID opening that door with more remote jobs, there are opportunities for them. So now it's looking at retaining that top talent that you have, if you're able. I mean, again, it runs to your business model.
Yeah. Are there any legal implications that need to be considered when looking at a hybrid workforce versus, having some individuals in the office that do the same job as a remote employee? Have you guys come across any of that while you've, been learning the new market? I know none of us are attorneys here, so.
Yeah.
There's Amy when you need her, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I could give legal advice on that.
All right, so we had another question come in. What are recruitment options for finding candidates with highly specialized skill set, years of experience in a particular computer and regulatory environments? So looking for those really niche positions, what have you guys found were really successful?
Yeah, so, with most recruiting, and I'll even just say, more entry level, semi-skilled positions, there's not what I call the silver bullet. Like if I do this one thing, I'm going to magically find the right candidates, right? I feel like recruiting is always a series of events, and the more specialized of the position and the higher the skill levels that are needed, the more wide you have to be in your recruitment approach, right?
Mhm.
So you used to be able to put years ago, put an ad in a newspaper and get people to respond. And then we posted everything on the internet and we got hundreds of people that responded to job postings. Today, it's more intimate, and the more skilled and the higher the level, the position, the more intimate the recruiting process needs to be. So, being part of networking groups or associations where those people with those skills are at or participate in is an excellent way. LinkedIn certainly is an avenue that has grown in popularity from a recruitment standpoint, because you can find individuals on LinkedIn that have really unique or specific skill sets or work in a industry that parallels yours. This is where individuals like Wendy come into play, right? Wendy has built most of her career on sourcing the passive candidate. And so the passive candidate is the individual that's not on the job boards. They don't have their resume posted. They're not actively searching for a job today. But if you are able to find that person and connect with them, and at least have a general interest conversation, you have the opportunity to see if maybe they'd be willing to consider an opportunity that they weren't even aware existed, right? So Wendy, maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of your strategies in kind of these really more niche or specialized skills and how you recruit for those type of individuals.
Absolutely. I mean, passive candidates, are the key. I think that especially in this market that we're in now, that passive candidate really has that ear open a little bit more than maybe they did before. Especially with the ones that have the top skills. And so, because I think that, as you mentioned earlier, Jim, with, in April there were more people who changed jobs and actually left their jobs, highly skilled people, due to a strong economy, kind of burnout in some ways after working a year of COVID, and are taking a step back and really saying, what is it that I want to do? So I think that is really the key here, is just and those people are not necessarily out there looking. They're waiting for that special opportunity to come along that really speaks to them. So the networking is absolutely key, whether it be online or, in your community, in some of the professional associations that you're involved with as well. Not just relying on job postings. I mean, certainly those do yield some great candidates, but really having to go out and seek these people, I think is absolutely the key. And LinkedIn is certainly a wonderful networking tool that you can do right from your desk. Joining groups on LinkedIn, people post. You can follow people that are that post regularly on those sites, and you can see their bios, and sometimes you can end up finding some great people that way.
Yeah, excellent. So our next question has to do with the not so new trend of ghosting. So as a recruiter and or hiring manager, how do you mitigate and eliminate that from happening and having a candidate just disappear on you?
Yeah, I think if that were a real easy answer that we could kind of spell out in a couple minutes here, I think there's a lot of people that would be signing up for that advice. I mean, I feel like it goes back to some basic things, right? Which is, one, you've got to have a high level of communication and transparency with the candidates from the earliest stages in the process. I think you also need to find out from the candidate, if you can get information from them, on what are they really looking for and what's important to them in their next position, right? Like, do they need a position like right away and that doesn't match with your hiring timeline? Or are they really just a passive candidate that's tied to where they're at today, and so they may have a different speed at which they're operating? So understanding timeline from both your standpoint as a company and the candidate standpoint for that hiring process, I think, is really important. Transparency as far as compensation and benefits and opportunities that are going to be afforded an individual coming into a role, right? The more information you can impart and the front end of the process, the better likelihood you have of really connecting with a candidate and making sure that they don't ghost out on you. But I feel like there's still regardless of the level, right? And we see ghosting at really at every level of kind of the the employment sector, from entry level people all the way up to executive and highly compensated people. Ghosting just happens, and sometimes there are reasons that we don't know about, that the candidate is going through, that forces that to happen. And so, again, my advice is try to be as transparent, try to communicate as much as you can, try to create a great candidate experience so that they get a full idea of what it's like to work for your company. And then ultimately you can't hold it against them, so to speak, if they ghost out on you, because better for them to ghost out than to come and try your job for 3 months and then leave. That's a way bigger setback than somebody ghosting out in the front end of the candidate process.
Yeah. Wendy, Christy, anything else to add on that?
I think Jim hit it all on the head. Staying as engaged as possible, as he said, being transparent throughout the whole process, continually communicating with them each step of the process to keep them, interested in the opportunity. But ultimately, in the end of the day, if it happens, all you can do is the best that you can.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, any tips for writing job descriptions or ads that attract candidates in a difficult hiring time?
I think as much information as you can give about your company and the position, definitely any benefits that are offered that are outside of the norm. As to Jim's point, the transparency of the compensation for the position. So you're eliminating people who, at no fault of either side, may not be interested because the wage is not what they're looking for. And so I think as much information you can provide about your company culture. That is, that's the big pop word anymore. Having a website that really showcases what your company does, obviously for a business, but also who you are, I think is also important as well too. So, if there's some fun aspects to the job as well that are different and set you aside, having that information in the actual job ad, I think is important as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And this really is a perfect time to review those job descriptions and see, what you can use to attract new talent. If 3 years of experience isn't required, maybe give a better job description in the actual duties and make it known that you'll train. You don't want to eliminate new candidates with an outdated job description just because it's one that you've always used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, understand who you are as a company and what your strengths are, and what it is that you can accentuate through the job description or through your job posting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're posting online, just some simple tips there. Most of the job boards work off of algorithms that are based on keywords. So candidates that are searching for keywords or skills that they have, they look for those posts in their algorithm in your job posting to match what candidates are searching for. So that's one. So if there are really important skills, make sure to mention those a couple of times in your job posting. Also, typically, if your job has been up for any length of period of time, it tends to fall lower down on the search rankings because of the time that it's been out there. So either refreshing or reposting jobs every week or so is definitely encouraged as a way to keep your job postings to come more to the top of searches that candidates are doing on some of the job boards. But as Wendy said, anything that you can impart on that candidate about your company. I would also say be more specific. Even though that you're looking for candidates, quality still trumps quantity today, right? And so finding candidates that are really a better match to what you're looking for saves your recruiters a lot of time, right? Because if they're weeding through hundreds of resumes that have been posted to a job and 98 of those people are unqualified, your recruiters are spending a lot of time doing unproductive work. So the more specific you can be about what you're looking for, the better of candidate match you'll get, hopefully, on the application process. And that'll just help the process as well.
And I think it's also identifying the must-haves. What do you absolutely have to have, and what can you take out of that job description? to, again, offer some training. But I think it's really focusing on what the person has to have to do the job successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. All right, so next question. We talked a little bit about compensation as we were going through that. So how can nonprofits compete with other work opportunities with increasing wages when increasing wages is not an option? What are some other ideas?
I think there are so many people out there that have the heart for the nonprofit as well too, who are really looking to, I think all of us make a difference in our jobs each day, but those are really looking from the social aspect of finding something where they can make a difference. And so again, I think it goes back to showcasing the type of business that you have, the opportunities available. People enjoy helping others. And I think that, salary, if you even look at all the surveys out there, money is very important. We all have to have it to live and take care of our families. But anytime you survey, it's usually number 3 or 4 down on the list. And so even with rising wages and things like that, I think there are still people out there that are looking for something that makes them feel good. And I think that nonprofits have that certainly to offer. And those people with that heart for that service are going to still be looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, I would suggest also, right, using your current employee base as a recruiting tool for you, right? Finding out from them who they know who may like to do similar type work. There's also things that you can look at around, it's not only what people get paid, but what comes with working at your company, to Wendy's point a little bit. So, do you have, flexibility for some remote work? That might be a way to attract somebody where you didn't have to have wages. Can you give people more paid time off? Is there an opportunity to be more flexible there? Do you have relaxed dress codes in your environment? Are there other perks or things that you can offer to employees that give them, access to maybe other discounts or benefits in your community? So I think there's, more and more organizations are looking at the holistic comp package, which includes, time off and perks and benefits, as well as compensation, as that attraction kind of piece for employees. And also your brand and who you are and what you represent in the community is an important piece of being able to hold on to and attract workers. So, if you've been in business like Landrum HR has been for 50 years, and there's stability, right? And we have the ability to show career path and opportunity for folks. Like, those are things also that don't necessarily show up in front end wages, but are also reasons why people would want to come to work for us or stay with us for a long period of time.
Yeah. So Christy, even in a not nonprofit environment, how do our clients stay competitive when their competitors are paying more in attracting and retaining talent?
Yeah, I think it's going to run along with what Jim just said. If you can't compete with the wages, you're going to have to compete with the environment, the culture. You're going to have to offer a place that people want to work. And Wendy's correct. When surveyed, most people don't go to salary first. So there's excellent opportunities out there. It's just a matter of creating that environment and what kind of resources you have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I would say is also along those lines, you have to know where your competitors are at, or where people with transferable skills are at in the marketplace from a wage standpoint. You can't be so far behind the rest of your competitors or what people are paying for those skills and still think that you're going to have a lot of candidates that you can attract. Even if you have the best environment and you have a great social cause and all of those things. So wages still have to be at least competitive for the skill sets that you're looking for, and you can balance out an entire compensation package or work package for an individual that includes a lot of other things besides wages. So I think understanding the market and where your competitors are at is really, really important. Understanding what trends are happening with transferable skills. And I'll say, just because I deal a lot with very entry level type positions, mostly in industrial type settings, the biggest factor that's affecting those environments today has been retail, and quite honestly, Target. Target went to a $15 an hour minimum pay rate for every position inside their all of their facilities during the pandemic. So in the middle of the pandemic, they raised pay rates to $15 an hour as a way to not only attract talent during that time period, but to retain the people that they had. And so what that happened is it set new baselines now for that skill classification of a worker. And that same worker that can work at Target, can work in fast food, can work in hospitality, can work in warehousing, distribution, construction, manufacturing. So what's happened is the wages in those other areas have had to come up and at least be competitive to attract enough workers to meet what their environments need. So it's economics 101, it's supply and demand. And when there's a lot of demand and there's lessening supply, something has to change. There's a balance shift that's occurring, and we're seeing it right now with wages happening, especially in these more entry level type positions. The other pressure is coming from the federal government, where there's a lot of talk about a national $15 an hour minimum wage over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And so companies are concerned about that and wanting to stay ahead of that curve. So a lot of different dynamics on the wage front that the companies need to be aware of today.
Yeah. What about wage compression with existing employees and bringing in new employees at higher rates because they're demanding those higher rates, and then having to play catch up with your current employees? What's the best way to handle something like that?
Well, I mean, I think we as an organization just kind of embarked on that journey right over the last year, and it starts with really understanding what the market is telling you today about those skills and where the pay ranges are for those skill sets that you have with inside your organization. I think wage compression is a very, very tricky, delicate, discussion point. But kind of going back to what we talked about, the candidate experience, it's about a higher level of transparency also with your existing workforce. Not all of a sudden posting ads for paying people more than what you're paying somebody in the current job today. It's finding a strategy to have conversations before that happens with the current workforce, talking about what that path may look like for them, express to them where you're at today and how you're struggling, right, and what extra demands it's putting on them as an employee base. So, if you're short workers today, you may be asking people to do more than they've done before. They may be having a high amount of overtime that they're being required to work. There may be a lot more pressures on those individuals. So the ability to hire more people and offset some of that workload may be something that's of attractiveness to a current employee and would stop them from leaving, even if it caused a little wage, compression in the short term. So being as transparent as you can, having conversations, but also having a corporate strategy on where you really feel like you need to be in the next year, in the next 3 years, and the next 5 years, and then building a path to get to that place that makes sense for your business based on your own economic situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of companies right now, in order to attract talent, have been offering initial sign-on bonuses. Has there been enough time to see if those are working to retain talent? Or if that's a good way to seek higher quality candidates, if that's a positive step in the market?
So we definitely see more candidates applying for those positions with sign-on bonuses. A good way to distribute that is to make those sign-on bonuses conditional upon attendance and pay them out over time. And that would certainly help with retention. I don't know that we've seen, Jim, have you seen any results so far? They're kind of newer with some of our bigger clients than with some other agencies out there.
Yeah, I think part of the sign-on bonus and that kind of concept has to be taken into consideration with the type of talent that you're looking for. So your more entry-level, semi-skilled workers um, typically are looking more for immediate gratification in a pay rate or something of significant difference, a needle mover, so to speak, that will force them to leave where they're at today to go work someplace else. Okay. And so is the likelihood of them getting or meeting all the qualifications for a sign-on bonus that's paid out over, let's just say 90 days, is that important or attractive enough to have them leave where they're at today? Because ultimately, once that sign-on bonus goes away, much like stimulus payments and added, federal unemployment subsidies, what's left is the base wage that you're at today. And can that employee live at that base wage for an extended period of time? And so I think that, to Christy's point, there has been an influx of people that have applied as a result of offering some of these things. It has stimulated people's interest in jobs. I think there's still some metrics and data that need to be analyzed over the long term on whether it had the impact that companies really were looking for. But if you've got immediate needs, and one of our clients, just had a call with them last week, said, every product that I make between now and the end of September, I will sell. And every product I don't make between now and September is one less product that I can sell. So to me, even if I put a short-term wage increase in place that helps me make more coolers right now, gives me incremental growth, it's worth it to me to make that investment in the short term, even though I'm going to be paying these people for a short period of time more money than I'm paying my long-term full-time associates that are doing that same job today, right? So again, to the point is you have to understand what your business dynamics are and what is the need for labor. Is it so immediate that you'll pay just about anything reasonably to get labor or people in to do that job today? Because if you miss this window, you can't recoup this, right? It's gone and you miss it. So is labor that important to your immediate business needs and you make decisions based on that? Or is your strategy more long-term kind of steady state growth that you can afford to take a more conservative approach to what you're doing from a hiring standpoint? So.
All right. So if you are unable to compete in the higher paying jobs, what are some specific examples of some employee retention and engagement programs that you've seen clients implement that have worked in the past?
I think some of the things are, similar to what we had said with regard to, is there a flexible work schedule? Is there, opportunities for remote work? Is there an opportunity, for job share? I think it's really getting creative, and I think talking to your employees as well too. Our company did an employee survey a little over a year. Well, I guess right out of a year ago. Asking questions, asking for feedback. I think that's important to be engaged with your current employees. What are they missing? You might think it's one thing and it's actually something else. So speaking with your current employees, talking with them, being open to the best of your ability. Obviously, you have a business to run as well too. But anything that you can do, and because employees want to be heard. That's the most that we all want to be heard for anything that we're a part of in our lives, whether it's our own family or our positions or other things that we're involved in. I think it's just important to have those lines of communication open, hear what they have to say, and be open to it.
And we've seen very simple things work with employee retention, monthly ice cream parties or quarterly lunches, just any opportunity, especially after a year of everyone being apart, for everyone to get together and maybe not talk about work for an hour and a half, can be, a great thing for employees that just don't get to see each other very much. So even smaller things can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say it usually is a lot of the smaller things, right? Employee recognition programs. Do you have things that recognize people? I know that on our Teams page, we've got an accomplishments or a spotlight page where we can highlight people that have gone above and beyond or done something great and share that. That's a great way to create engagement. Employee roundtables are really good vehicles to have individuals to be able to weigh in if you don't want to do a whole employee survey. I think that there are opportunities for leadership to get to the more entry level or to the lower levels in your organization, and just sit down and communicate with those individuals on a regular basis, or have a town hall meeting with those groups, just to share where the company's at and what's going on. Whether it's, an attendance incentive, or it could be a quality, incentive, or it could be some other fun event that you create with inside the work environment that drives kind of the behaviors that you want your employees to emulate, right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of help them to do the right things by putting a spotlight or a small incentive program around something like that as well, for engagement purposes. And generally people like to be a part of something, and they like to feel some success, and they like to feel like they're making a difference. So anything that we can do that highlights, any of those things with our employee base is a positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there any other advice that you would give to a quote unquote mom and pop small business versus what you would give to, the larger client, Jim, as you mentioned?
Yeah, communication and transparency. Essentially it's a family business. You want your employees to feel like they're a part of your family, and they are. And I think that the more communication that you have with them, whether you create a weekly touch point with your employees, or maybe it's an every other week touch point, where you just sit down and listen to them, and how are things going from your perspective? Are there things that we can be doing differently that you think would improve the business? Soliciting their feedback and information, especially those that are on the front lines. Usually they have some great ideas and insights into what would make the environment better or more successful. So doing those little things, to me, goes a long way in creating that connection with your employee base, and letting them know that you really do value and care what they have to say and what they're contributing to the success of your business. So I always find it, from a leadership standpoint, many times your employees look to you for all the answers. And so often we need to kind of flip that around, and we need to ask them how they would solve some of these problems, and what ideas and thoughts that they have, and listen to their ideas and suggestions, and create an environment where there's a lot of two-way dialogue and communication just around the business and about them as individuals, and how you can help them to be more successful. So
yeah. All right, so we have time for one more question, and we just got two in, and they're pretty similar actually. So we're going to just dive into this topic. What's a basic way to ensure your organization is attracting a diverse candidate pool, whether that is race, orientation, neurodiverse, former military, etc.? So we've been hearing a lot about diversity recently. So what's the best way to ensure that your organization is attracting a diverse candidate?
Well, since there's no one magic thing that we can do to recruit all candidates, but we have to be intentional in our recruiting efforts. We have to understand how to get to and attract those candidates. I know here locally in the Panhandle, we have one of our recruiters that specializes in working with all of the military organizations in our area. So we're very connected to all the different military branches and different organizations that are out here. We participate in a lot of different diversity job fairs and different career source programs that target specifically minorities or diversity work groups. So you have to be intentional about your approach to recruiting, and you as an organization need to identify those organizations or all those opportunities where you can connect with that worker population base.
100%.
Yeah.
Christy, anything to add on that?
I would just say having that company presence within your community, so that everyone within the community knows your business and knows your company as a place that they want to work for. I think just having that name recognition and that branding locally could go a long way as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, how about some closing comments? I know this is a big topic. We covered a lot today. So Jim, I'll start with you. Just a closing comment.
Yeah, closing comments, two things. We hit a lot on, attraction, but we can't lose people out the back as fast as we're hiring them in. So making sure that you've got a really solid retention strategy and engagement strategy for your current workforce and those new employees that you onboard, and understand that onboarding, right, a new hire isn't the same as engagement and long-term retention. Two different things, and you need to approach them a little bit differently so that you have sustainability on your retention programs and engagement.
Oh. All right, Wendy, closing comments.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with Jim. But it's also, the big thing is the communication. We've said that, I think, with almost every question that we've answered, is communicating with your current employees, communicating with those who you are, looking to hire, sharing information about your company, showcasing the wonderful things about your company, and making sure as they come on board and they are part of your company, keeping all that momentum going is what is just so key and important. And listening, being open to hearing ideas from people and suggestions and if your business allows for it, offering opportunities for flexible work schedule, remote opportunities, hybrid. If that's an opportunity, and really taking a close look at the business and seeing how can we help our employees and make this a better work environment.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Christy.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off of what Wendy said. Now is just not the time to do things the same way that you've always done them. It's a really perfect opportunity to rethink your positions, rethink your new hires and your new hire process, and get the best folks that are out there right now.
Awesome. Well, we are at the end of our hour, so I just wanted to thank our panelists today. This was a wonderful discussion. Thank you for all of the comments and the questions we got, and we hope everyone enjoyed it today. And thank you so much.